movie begins with a young woman named Karice walking alone along a quiet road after her car suddenly breaks down due to radiator failure. As she walks, Karice calls her mother and asks her to pick her up along the road. But something feels wrong. A mysterious car appears behind her. She signals for help, hoping the driver will stop, but the vehicle slowly follows instead. At first, it keeps its distance. Then, when Karice begins walking faster, the car suddenly accelerates toward her. The screen cuts to the next day. We are introduced to Officer Betty, a policewoman preparing for work while leaving her home with her young nephew, Ben. Moments later, Betty receives a call from her colleague. He informs her that Karice's mother, Mary Lynn, has arrived at the morgue to identify her daughter's body. The story then shifts to Stacy, an Indigenous ranger patrolling the wilderness alone. While moving through the forest, she discovers an illegal bear trap hidden in the ground. Concerned that someone could get seriously hurt, she removes it and takes it with her. Back at the police station, Betty arrives for her shift change and gently invites Mary Lynn inside to confirm the victim's identity. When the body bag is opened, Mary struggles to accept the painful reality. Through tears, she says her daughter had already faced many hardships, but she cannot understand why her life ended this way. The story moves to an engaged couple, Ray and his fiancée Beth, visiting land recently approved by the Indigenous Council for a future camp development project. Beth works as a land surveyor, studying the area before construction begins, while Ray simply accompanies her. While conducting measurements, Beth notices a crow circling overhead. A strange odor fills the air, something rotten, almost metallic. She asks Ray if he smells it, but he senses nothing unusual. Suddenly, Beth's measuring device reacts, showing a strange wave passing through the area. Before she can understand what's happening, she's violently attacked by something invisible. Moments later, officers Betty and Andy arrive after receiving the emergency report. Andy explains that Beth works for WEC, an organization planning to build a camp facility on Indigenous territory. When Betty questions Ray, he insists he never saw anyone attack Beth. He only remembers her reacting to a strong smell, something that reminded him of blood. His statement leaves Betty deeply unsettled. The next day, Stacy is seen eating lunch at a small cafe. A man named Donnie watches her in an uncomfortable way from nearby. Soon, a woman named Frances approaches Stacy and mentions that the morgue has been unusually busy lately, especially as the region's ice roads grow thicker. As Stacy prepares to leave, she discovers her car blocked by Donnie's vehicle. Donnie attempts to flirt with her and offers her a promotional t-shirt supporting the WEC organization. Instead of moving his car, he asks for her phone number, clearly irritating her. Pretending to look for a pen, Stacy suddenly strikes him in the face, causing his nose to bleed before walking away. The story then shifts to another couple, Jessica and Gary, preparing for a hunting trip. While sitting inside their vehicle, Gary notices the same strange smell lingering in the air. Moments later, they hear heavy footsteps moving across the roof of the car. Assuming it's a wolf, Gary grabs his rifle and steps outside to check. Within seconds, Jessica witnesses something horrifying. Gary is attacked and fatally injured by an unseen force. Panicking, she slams the car door shut and locks herself inside. Soon after, Betty and Andy arrive at the scene. Betty continues questioning Jessica about the incident. According to Jessica, she never saw anything attack Gary, and she also didn't notice any strange smell like the one Gary mentioned before stepping outside. Meanwhile, Stacy is seen hunting rabbits in the forest. While moving quietly through the woods, she is suddenly surprised by the arrival of Betty. Betty approaches her with an important request. Because of the mysterious deaths happening in the region, she wants Stacy to assist the investigation as a temporary deputy. At first, Stacy refuses since she prefers to stay away from police matters. However, because she is the only skilled tracker who understands the forest trails, she eventually agrees to help Betty with the investigation. Soon after, the two head to the morgue to examine the condition of the victims. The body shows severe injuries that are difficult to explain. When Stacy carefully studies the wounds, she initially believes they might have been caused by a large hunting animal. As they prepare to leave, Betty notices something unusual. Frances, the woman working at the morgue, is wearing a strange necklace that catches Betty's attention. Betty also feels uneasy seeing Frances behaving somewhat strangely while working there. Later, Stacy visits her uncle Carson and informs him about the dangerous creature that might be responsible for the attacks around town. When Carson hears this, he immediately gathers equipment and weapons to help his niece investigate. At the same time, Betty begins researching the spiritual traditions connected to the Indigenous communities in the region. During her search, she discovers a photograph of Frances connected to certain spiritual activities, suggesting that Frances may know more than she has revealed. Meanwhile, Stacy and Carson begin exploring the forest trails together. They place pieces of animal meat as bait, hoping to lure the creature out of hiding. However, during their search, they realize something frightening. The attacks may not have been caused by a normal animal. Instead, they realize something something isn't right and stay alert, sensing that danger may be nearby. Suddenly, Carson is attacked by something unseen. Stacy witnesses the attack but cannot see the attacker. It appears to be an invisible presence. Reacting quickly, she fires her weapon toward the figure and manages to stop the attack, saving Carson. However, Carson has already been badly injured during the encounter. Stacy quickly takes him to the hospital where doctors begin emergency treatment. While Carson receives medical care, Betty arrives to check on them. At that moment, Stacy explains what she believes they are facing. According to her, the creature does not seem to be a wild animal. Instead, it resembles something supernatural, something that looks disturbingly similar to the earlier victim, Karice. Betty had never believed in such things before, but after seeing the strange pattern of death, she begins to suspect that something unusual may be involved. Shortly afterward, Andy arrives at the hospital to learn what happened. However, he presents a different theory. Andy believes the incidents may be the work of people hiding deep in the wilderness. According to him, these individuals might be acting under the influence of extreme fear or beliefs, causing them to behave unpredictably. For the moment, Betty and Stacy listen to Andy's explanation, even though they are not fully convinced. Meanwhile, Carson asks an unusual question. He wants to know whether Karice's organs, especially her heart, were still intact when her body was examined, as if he already suspects something about what is happening. The scene then shifts to Frances, who visits the place where Karice lost her life. There, she is approached by Mary, Karice's mother. The two women begin sharing memories about the kind things Karice did during her life. But as their conversation ends, Frances suddenly hears a strong gust of wind moving through the area. The following day, Betty continues searching for clues in the growing number of murder cases. Slowly, she begins noticing a pattern. Every victim who died had been wearing clothing connected to the same organization, the WEC Mining Company. Even more suspicious, the people who were with the victims but had no connection to the organization were left unharmed. While digging deeper into the case, Betty discovers several reports claiming that the local community council had approved mining licenses for WEC without full agreement from the community. She also finds an article revealing that Karice had been actively speaking against the project while she was still alive. Later, Betty watches a presentation video related to the mining project that her nephew had been studying. During this moment, another surprising detail is revealed. Carson had actually been one of the supporters of the mining project. He believed the company's promises that the development would bring opportunities and help improve the local community. Meanwhile, Mary and Karice had always opposed the mining project. They believed it would damage the ecosystem, threatening the forest, rivers, and the natural balance of the land. Later that night, Betty goes to the morgue and asks Frances about Karice's body. Frances tells her that the body has already been transferred to another mortuary. However, Betty is not satisfied with the explanation. She begins asking for transportation records and details about where the body was taken. Frances keeps making excuses at first, but after Betty continues pressing her for answers, Frances finally admits the truth. She tells Betty that Mary Lynn, Karice's mother, was the one who took the body. The next day, Betty meets Stacy and explains what she has discovered. According to her finding, all of the victims were workers connected to the mining organization preparing to begin their project in the area. Betty also reveals something surprising. Her investigation shows that Carson, Stacy's uncle, had been one of the people supporting the organization's project. This could explain why the mysterious spirit might be targeting those connected to it. Soon after, they meet Andy, who has just arrested Donnie. Donnie was taken into custody after accidentally shooting an elderly deaf woman who was walking in the woods. He had mistaken her for the mysterious figure that people believed was responsible for the recent attacks. Later, Andy goes to a cafe where he speaks with Frances. He tells her that he saw her earlier at the place where Karice lost her life. Frances explains that she had simply gone there to pay her respects to the young woman. At first, she seems hesitant, as if she is hiding something. But after remembering how strongly Karice had fought to protect the environment, Frances finally decides to confess the truth. She reveals that Donnie was actually the one who ran over Karice. According to Frances, Donnie had invited her out that night. The story then returns to Stacy and Betty as they go to meet Mary Lynn. Betty asks Mary about the whereabouts of Karice's body. Instead of giving a direct answer, Mary tells them that her daughter's body has been taken by ancestral spirits. Mary's emotions quickly rise as she expresses her anger toward the mining organization, which she believes is trying to take everything from them, including their ancestral land. Seeing how overwhelmed Mary is, Stacy and Betty decide it is best to leave her alone for the moment. While they are walking back to their car, Betty receives a call from her nephew, Ben. He tells her that the mining organization has started offering new job opportunities in the town. Betty immediately warns him to stay away from anything related to the WEC company, but Ben insists that he still wants to apply for the job. Just as Stacy and Betty are about to drive away, Stacy suddenly remembers something important. She returns to Mary and begins sharing a story about a former colleague whose situation closely resembled Mary's. Stacy gently tries to convince Mary that while protecting their land is understandable, harming others will only make things worse. Before leaving, Stacy gives Mary an amulet that had once been given to her by a friend. Meanwhile, Ben is on his way to apply for the job despite despite Betty's warning. As he walks, Betty calls him again, reminding him to avoid anything connected to WEC. Suddenly, Ben sees a frightening apparition appear in front of him. Terrified, he runs as fast as he can. Fortunately, he manages to reach his house and get inside, narrowly escaping the pursuing entity that resembles Karice, a presence that seems to strongly oppose anyone supporting the mining organization. Shortly afterward, Betty arrives at the house and immediately rushes to the basement to make sure Ben is safe. Soon after, Stacy also arrives at Betty's house. Armed with her rifle, she is determined to finally end the nightmare that has been haunting the town. Amid the panic inside the house, Stacy searches for Betty. At that moment, the spirit of Karice begins violently striking the door, trying to force its way inside. Thinking quickly, Stacy distracts the entity by holding up the t-shirt with the WEC logo that Donnie had given her earlier. The plan works. The spirit immediately reacts to the symbol connected to the mining organization. Stacy then uses the moment to lure the entity outside the house. Just as she planned, the spirit runs directly into a bear trap that Stacy had secretly set. With the creature trapped, Stacy and Betty begin firing their weapons, hoping it will stop the attack. But the result is not what they expected. The entity no longer behaves like a normal human being. Even after being hit multiple times, it continues moving. Panicking, Stacy grabs an axe, hoping to finish the fight once and for all. But suddenly, the spirit breaks free from the trap and rushes forward, injuring Betty during the struggle. For a moment, both Stacy and Betty hesitate. Meanwhile, Mary finally realizes the consequences of what she has done. Understanding that the spirit of her daughter must be stopped, she performs an ancestral ritual. In the ritual, she burns Karice's preserved heart in order to weaken the spirit that has been unleashed. Within moments, the entity begins to lose its strength. Seeing the opportunity, Stacy acts quickly and strikes decisively, finally separating the spirit from its physical form and bringing the confrontation to an end. The scene then shifts back to Mary, who is visited by Francis. Francis quietly asks whether everything is finally over. Mary replies that it is almost finished. She explains that the spirit can only be called by name one last time. After that, it will never return again. Meanwhile, back at the scene, Andy arrives and informs Stacy and Betty that the person responsible for Karice's death has been arrested. But without realizing it, Andy speaks Karice's name aloud while explaining what happened. That single moment changes everything. For one final time, the spirit rises again. This time, it moves toward the person responsible for Karice's death. I hope you enjoyed this story. Thanks for watching till the end.